Alrighty, so we are now in the California swing of the season preview. So we got through the Texas swing, talked about the free Texans team in the season preview before, and now we're going to start the California swing, talk about the first free team in the California swing in the season preview, and that, of course, is my team, the San Jose Earthquakes. Now, I've done a video about the Quakes a couple of weeks ago, and I talk about my frustration and also talk about some optimism about this team. So there's going to be something, especially when we get to the optimism and concern part, that's going to be a little bit repetitive. And really, not much has changed for this team ever since I made that video. Like, they have only made one signing ever since I made that video, and that one signing was not very welcome from the fan base. I mean, getting Francesco Calvo, which I'll talk a little bit once we get to some of the transfer that the Quakes have made, has met with a lot of negative comments from the fan base. Now, overall, last season, they finished with a 10, 11, and 13 record and finished with 41 points. They scored 46 goals, but gave up 54 goals with a goal differential of -10, and they finished 10th in the Western Conference. Last 5 seasons, it's been kind of almost the same. In 2021, they finished in 10th place, as I mentioned, and then in 2020, they didn't make it to the playoff as the 8th seed, but in 2019, of course, they finished 8th place, but didn't make it to the playoffs because, in 2020, in the COVID-shortened season, 8th position in the West at least gets you to just into the playoffs. But in 2018, let's not talk about what happened that season. And then in 2017, they also made it to the playoffs, and that was the year when they had that dramatic decision day game against Minnesota and score that late goals by Marcos Arena, which I will never forget that moment, as I was there to watch that, to get themselves into the playoffs and finish in 6th place. But both times when they made it to the playoffs in 2020 and 2017, they got knocked out in the first round. Though, at least in 2020, unlike in 2017, where once they got into the playoffs, they got completely wiped out the door by Vancouver. At least in 2020, they put up a really good fight against top seed Sporting KC and even pushed them all the way to a PK shootout. Now, let's talk about some of the transfers. And that's pretty much it. That's all the names that the Quakes have signed this season. I mean, the biggest signing, obviously, is young Gregush coming from Minnesota. And then, of course, the controversial one with Francesco Calvo coming to the Chicago Fire. Now, I have time to think about this, and I will say that, if he is used more for a depth piece, it's not as bad as some people would think. But I will also say that I can understand why there's a lot of frustration in the fan base. And I originally was very frustrated about this move, too, because I've seen him play when he was doing his time with Minnesota, and how, I mean, it's still shocking the fact that the Loons signed him as a DP player. I mean, I guess to the Loons' defense, they did not realize that Calvo did not fit in MLS. I mean, they thought that he was a very high caliber player from Costa Rica and also a Costa Rican international. And I also kind of feel like Calvo is kind of a player where he's one of those players that just play well in the international level, but don't do so well in the club level. And that happens with players. I mean, there are definitely some player that is very unique in terms of that way, which is also why, I know some Quakes fan will say, well, yes, he's doing very well with Costa Rica right now. But we've seen this story before, and how when he does play in the club level and play in MLS, he turns out to be hot garbage. But, I will say that time will tell to see whether or not it's going to happen. And again, I feel like it's always harsh to just kind of judge on a signing without actually seeing them playing person and actually playing for the team. Now, if he turns out to be bad again, then there's definitely some criticism. And at least one thing I will say about the contract that he has, I think it's only like a 1-year contract where if he does not do well, the Quakes can just let go of him. So it's not as bad in terms of the contract standpoint, but I can understand why there's some fans are upset about it. But again, as long as this is the depth signing, I don't think this is actually as bad as maybe what we first thought, where everybody was just very angry about this signing, and they said that he is like literally the worst defender in the league. And I will say that he is definitely ranked as in the bottom tier of defender in MLS, but in no ways I think he's the worst defender in MLS. I mean, I can definitely think of there are some defender that is even worse than Francisco Calvo. But besides that, in the draft, they got Oscar Argan and Usani Brota, who actually it's not from the Quakes. That is actually wrong there. He's actually coming from the draft. And I believe Oscar Argan, they got him from DC United, who of course drafted him, but then they of course did like the little trade, and they're also banking on the fact that he is going to be kind of like the next Tanner Beast in terms of the backline for this Quakes team. Now, in terms of player that left this team, well, the good news is there's a lot of Almeida guys that is no longer going to be part of this team, and one of the biggest Almeida guy, and a guy that just Almeida tends to love to play him no matter how bad he is Andy Rios. Finally, he is now gone with this team, going back to his native country, Argentina, to Aldo del Civi. Then you got Lucho Abicasi going back to Banfield. And then you got Eric Carvalho, long time Quakes player that's been kind of used more of a utility player. He's going to be going to the USL Championship and joining El Paso. Then you got Carlos Fierro, who was certainly an Almeida guy and one of the more disappointing Almeida guy that he had. I mean, Fierro, I would say that he isn't the most disappointing Almeida guy. I mean, that role will always go with Andy Rios, and you could maybe even argue Daniel Vega too. But Carlos Fierro, he was definitely kind of underwhelming for a guy that we thought that maybe he can provide some spark on the attack. I mean, there's times that he of course can show that, but I think it was pretty clear that his time was done after last season. He didn't really do much to help his cause to stay with this team. So, yeah, he's now gone and become a free agent. And then you got Jacob Akinurich also becoming a free agent. This is just such a sad to see him never really develop to be a player that, I remember when they signed him as a homegrown back in 2017, I believe. And this was back when the Quakes were signing a lot of homegrown players and are really started to kind of develop that youth kind of movement that the former GM Jesse Fornelli said that he wants this team to be in. They said that he alongside with Gilbert Fuentes was going to be the future of this team, and yeah, it hasn't really worked out. I mean, he is now going to be a free agent, and then Gilbert Fuentes, I think he's still now on loan right now. And then of course the other players that no longer is going to be with this team. Obviously, the biggest name that's no longer on this team and really just marked truly the end of the year for the Quakes is Chris Wondolowski, retiring after last year, and that this year it's gonna be hard to see how the Quakes are not actually gonna have Wando, and that I've been a fan of this team since 2013, but I know there's many fans that have been a fan of this team ever since the team came back in 2008, or even during when this team were one of the best team in the league, winning MLS Cup back in the early 2000s. But this this is gonna feel hard and kind of also feel weird to not see Wando be on the pitch and playing. I mean, occasionally he will of course still return to. He will still return to PayPal Park and make his appearance. And also, by the way, I need to fix his name there. I do not want to disrespect the GOAT of the Quakes by misspelling his name there. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be very strange to not see one they'll be being there and see him in a Quakes jersey. Another guy that's also retired is Daniel Vega. I mean, again, there's been mixed opinion about Vega. My opinion I always criticize Vega, but there's been times that Vega has shown to be a decent keeper, though he's also kind of a little bit inconsistent. And when you're a goalkeeper, inconsistency is not one of the things that you want to have. And not to mention, you can clearly see when he arrived at the Quakes. I mean, I was kind of surprised that he was just going to be the regular starter, consider I thought when he came to the Quakes he was just going to be a backup goalkeeper, knowing the fact that he came from the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the USL Championship and the fact that he was winding down his career. It seems like he's just going to be used for veteran president, just trying to give some veteran presence to our now long-term goalkeeper JT Marskowski some help to get him to the next step. But it turns out he was actually a starter for a while before JT did finally gets the stage. And again, knowing the fact that he was winding down his career, it's no surprise that he had announced to hang up his boots. And then of course another guy that is also Almeida's guy, but he is actually going to be going back to the team that he was on loan, is Oswaldo Alanis. I mean, Alanis, it's been kind of a mixed opinion too. I mean, there's times where he has been good. I mean, I will obviously never forget that memorable debut in that game against Toronto FC where he scored an incredible goal also to give the Quakes a point in that game against TFC. But other than that, there really hasn't been a lot of highlights for Alanis, and that he's just a guy that as last year came, you can definitely see his wheel was starting to fall off, and he's just not really he was kind of also a liability whenever he needs to face against attackers that can just easily blow past him because he's just such a slow defender, and probably one of the slowest defender we in MLS right now. Now, in terms of optimism for this team, and again, I try not to talk too many optimism as a very pessimistic Quakes fan, but I'll still say that there are some optimism about this team. I mean, first, the big optimism is the midfield looks absolutely stacked. Like, when you look at this midfield, there is not a lot of holes that you see in this team. And in some way, I would say that maybe the midfield is too stacked with the way that there's just so many midfielders there, and that I'm going to be interested to see how Almeida is going to work that out with so many quality midfielders in that team. And that this seems like something that I didn't think I would say, but we could be seeing a situation where, since the Quakes have so many good quality midfielder, that we could see maybe good starting quality midfielders in this team, but they're not even going to get starting minutes, but they can maybe get starting minutes with another team. And that's something, again, I didn't think I was going to stay, considering the fact that depth has always been one of the big issue for this team, but not the midfield. I mean, it is absolutely stacked heading into this season. They have one or possibly two DP spot open this season, so obviously the one DP spot is because I think Wanda was on a DP contract, and now he has retired. That opens a DP slot, but not to mention the fact that if Chofis does not stay with the Quakes, knowing that his loan is going to be ending in the middle of the season, I believe it's June 30th when his loan is ending, then there could be two DP slot open. And that's also another thing that, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with Chofis, and that I really hope maybe the Quakes will eventually lock him down to a contract and maybe buy him permanently, because what Chofis did in the latter part of the season was nothing short of spectacular. Like, that is something I have not seen a number 10 and an attacking player does like that in quite some while. So I really hope they eventually will lock down Chofis, but we'll see whether if that's going to be the case. And especially with the way that, knowing this Quakes team and knowing they don't like to spend money, if Chivas is going to ask big money for Chofis, don't be surprised the Quakes will not pay it. Now, in terms of concern for this team, lack of signing and money spent. I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that because I've talked about it many times before, and it's frustrating. Like, this is literally, I mean, I can't think of a team in MLS that is still stuck in a MLS 1.0 mindset with the spending, and especially with the ownership that this team has had. I mean, it's just incredibly frustrating, the fact that this team is not able to get some big name players, or even get spend some money, because the ownership and the owner just flat out refused to splash out the cash to kind of invest in this team. But that's something that I've talked about many times before, so I don't really need to discuss too many times about that concern. The other concern, I would say, is Ebobisse. I know some people say that Ebobisse, he could definitely be being a bounce back year. In fact, that's kind of one of the players that I could have put as a comeback player. But last year, I thought Ebobisse was kind of a little bit underwhelming. I mean, when he was first signed with the Quakes, I know there was a lot of positive review, and I even said that seems like a game change or move. But injuries, of course, happened with him having a concussion, and that he just never really kind of got his goal scoring form. Even when he come back from injury. So my question is that can he, of course, get that back? And I'll give him the excuse, the fact that because of the fact that he didn't really score a lot when he came into this team, and not to mention when he came back from that concussion injury. I'll give that as the excuse of the fact that it's always hard to try to get back to goal scoring form after coming back from an injury, especially coming back from concussion injury. But we'll see whether or not Ibobasi is going to be that number 9 that we hope that we pay that amount last summer. That is actually worth it, because again, there's been a lot of talk throughout these past couple of years of what happened when Wando retired. Who is going to be able to basically take the torch and become the next lethal goal scorer? And that now finally the time has come. This will be the first season that Wando is not going to be with this team, and that it seems like that torch was passed last season when Wando passed it to Ibobasi, and he's going to be the future number 9 for this team. And we'll see if he can, of course, do it. I mean, I believe he can definitely do it. This is a guy that when he was with the Timbers, he was a regular 10 plus goal scorer, and a guy that was also so pretty close to being on the U.S. men's national team radar before he was the injuries, of course, kind of derail his chance to do so. But yeah, let's see if he can, of course, get back to that goal scoring form heading into this season. And then lastly, the last concern about this team, and this is something that I kind of mentioned a couple of weeks when I did a video about the Quakes, is the whole Matheus Almeida situation. Now, I did read an article on MLSsoccer.com when Chris Leach, of course, talks about this situation, and Chris Leach tried to downplay it, and I don't blame him for trying to downplay this, because I know he does not want to just openly say, well, yeah, I think he's right. Like, he doesn't want to be there, so maybe in the middle of the season we're just going to fire him, or maybe this is just going to be a year where we're going to just punt the ball and focus on 2023. No, he's definitely not going to say that. Like, if he say that, the fan base might as well just not show up this season, because this might as well just be a building year, and the fact that it's just kind of being a wasted season. But instead, he kind of downplayed it a little bit, and saying that maybe Almeida doesn't really kind of mean it in that way. But again, it's going to be interesting, because this is the last season of Almeida's contract, and something just tells me he's not going to be staying with this team. Which, if he's not staying with this team for next season, how much interest is he going to show with this team? Like, I know Almeida have always said that he will be committed to this 4-year contract, and that he even when things, of course, goes badly, he's still commit to it. Well, now we're going to see if that, of course, is the case, because again, what Almeida said during January, when he talks about he's frustrated with the lack of spending, and he's frustrated with the way that the team is not giving enough money. I mean, that's something that, I mean, he's not wrong, but also I also kind of mentioned the fact that he's not also right in terms of that situation, because he's not wrong with the way that, yes, this ownership is cheap and they're not giving him enough money, but he's also not right because he has spent some money in terms of bringing his guys, and it just have not worked the way it is. But either way, this Almeida situation is going to be interesting, and it's important the fact that I hope Almeida does stay focused this season and just don't have to worry about what's going to happen in his future, even if it is his last year. Because if Almeida is not going to be focusing on this team, then you just lost the respect of the dressing room. Like, if you lost the respect of the dressing room, this team could get up, can really start to go downward spiral. So yeah, I think this is a very interesting situation, and this is also kind of the reason why some people even say they should have just fired Almeida last season. Like, if Almeida is openly throwing the team under the bus and throwing the front office under the bus, you've seen so many times where front office just straight on fire their head coach, because they know that they're going to be a toxic place heading into the upcoming season. And sometimes it could, of course, be right, and sometimes it could be wrong. But in this case, again, the fact that they're letting him stay, and whether if he still commit to this job, and whether if he can continue to try to guide this team to one last run, despite what he said earlier in January, it's going to be interesting to see. And it could also be the difference between whether this team has a good season or not. Because if Almeida does not really care about this team, I can just see this team being finished dead last in the standing. Like, you could have the most talented team in the league, but when you have a head coach that doesn't care and lost the respect of the dressing room, you're not going very, very far in the league. Now, in terms of MVP for this team, I mean, I guess it's got to be Chofis. There really isn't a lot of MVP choice I can choose, but it's got to be Chofis, with the way that if he can once again produce the same performance that he had in this first half of the season, like he has in the second half of the season, there's no doubt he is going to be the MVP, and he's not only going to be the playmaker of this team, but also could be the goal scorer of this team too. Comeback player. So I mentioned earlier that one of my comeback player was Jeremy Ebobisse, but I'm going to go with Christian Espinoza, who had a really rough season last year, and I really hope he has a bounce back here, because again, when Espinoza came to this team, and when he was signed on a record transfer fee, especially in his first season, he definitely lived up to his potential, but ever since, it's been kind of slowly going downhill in terms of his production. Now, there's no doubt that he still has the talent to be a decent player, and he can be very dangerous whenever he roams down the wing and basically put those cutback ball into the box. But we need to, of course, maybe see more of that, and especially his delivery needs to be better, because last season there's been times where his delivery has just been poor, and there's times where it's almost like he's not even interested to be there because of how poor of a form that he is in. So yeah, I think Espinoza, hopefully he's going to have a bounce back year, and not to mention he is also a DP player, and that he is the highest earned player in this team. You expect he needs to be a success if he's not going to be labeled as another the Earthquakes failure in terms of a player that carries that designated player tag. Now, in terms of expectation for this team, I mean, I put question mark because I honestly don't know. Like, I know the obvious expectation for this team is to make it to the playoffs, but there's just so much question once again about this team, which, that's kind of ironic, because that's been kind of how I feel with the Quakes for the past couple of years, where every single year, I mean, besides maybe in 2018 and then last season when we had like a good foundation and we move a step forward, we took 2 steps back. So again, it's just getting to a point where I don't really have any more expectation of this team, other than the fact that I just hope eventually this team does get out of this cycle, and that we'll see maybe this might be one of those times where the Quakes could make a miraculous run and not only make it to the playoffs, but also goes deep. But other than that, again, I'm not gonna give any expectation, because if you're not gonna put expectation on this team, you can't be disappointed about this team if they fail to make it to the playoffs again. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and if you're a Quakes fan like myself, what is your optimism about this team? What is your concern of this team? And most importantly, expectation. I mean, again, I didn't make my expectation, but let me know if you're a Quakes fan and what your expectation is with this team. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.